Alright, so I put the 0.75 millimeter over here. I ran out of it. I can only cut like 10 or 12 feet or so. This is nice and white glued in, and all of these guys they're still drying. They'll be a little while, but the other side of them is flush against the wall, so they're in good shape. Excuse the noise, right down there. And over on this side, I pretty much need to white glue all of the stuff going on here, and as I pretty much need to pull the fiber optics back anyway, I'm going to undo all the threads from the canisters, leave them hanging out, white glue them in place at this point, and then I'll thread them back through, and if there's any random ones that decide to poke out and break the glue seal, then that'll be the way that goes. And what else? I don't know, that's about it. It should be relatively easy, but pulling all this fiber out is definitely going to take some time. So let me see how it goes. Alright, so what I'm doing here is pushing all these guys through, giving them a good tug to make sure they're flush against the wall here. And then once that was done, I started putting glue down, using this end of a Q-tip to wash it in there just a little bit, and then I'm threading them into the tube so they will keep this form and shape going on. One of the lessons that I learned on these guys here was, I can actually show you real quick. So on 2 out of 3 of these computer consoles, you can see that these have a slanted back and this one is flat. This is the way it should be. What I did on these guys was to thread straight through, set the glue in, and then I let them sit. What I realized when I went to put the backing on was that the white glue had set so well that I couldn't bend the fibers into place pretty much straight down. So when I went to do this third one, put all the fibers through, put the white glue down, and then I immediately put this back on there with a clamp. And that held it in place. So this one consequently is flush the way it should be, and these two, unfortunately, it was a lesson learned a little too late, have the slanted back. So this normal one is going to go in the middle and these two are going to go on the side, so I got a little bit of symmetry going on. I have to repaint the fronts, as you can see. What happened on these is the fiber was sticking out so much that I took a razor blade and trimmed down the points. And in doing so, especially on this guy here, I scraped up a lot of the original brass. Everything still lights up really nicely. There's no way to get good focus and show that off at the same time. So you'll have to trust me on that. Looks like these were all 0.25 millimeter fiber optics, which made everything a lot more tricky to do because the stuff is so thin. This stuff at 0.5 millimeter is definitely easier to work with, but having learned that lesson over there of how the glue will set, I don't want to set these straight out, put the glue down, and then try to force them into place. It's got to happen now, basically. And one other lesson about fiber optics that I have not put into play right now, and I'm going to try and figure out how I can fix this later, is that even though fiber mostly works from one end to the other, there's still contamination that occurs along the line of the fiber optic overall. And one trick, I don't know if it was Steve Neal's Garage I was watching or maybe TrekWorks that pointed it out, is to, could be someone else actually entirely, but the idea is that you paint the sides of the fiber optics black or anything else really, just to cut any light transmission down. So once these are glued into place, I'll even douse it a little more with some white glue here just to make sure it's got a really solid connection. Once this is in place, I'll probably pull the fiber back out of these tubes again, and I don't know if I'll just take a little jar of enamel and hand brush it down, because spray paint, especially like a spray can, that's not going to fly here at all. There's too much stuff to mask off and too much danger of overspray going on. So that is not going to happen. But I think a simple brush may do the trick overall. The other thing would be to encase it in heat shrink. I think that would probably work well. However, it would be tough to get it down inside these tubes once it's done. And as previously, the way I threaded this into the tubes, I'm going to work from the outsides to the ends so I have the most amount of room for that there. So having done these two sides there, I'm now going to move over to these guys here and throw those down. So I figured I'd get the process on camera here, just in case there's any questions, and of course for my own reference. So I would like to build this model again, another one of them that is, using the lessons I learned on this guy here. So one thing I've found doing that I think helps is to, once you put some white glue on the back, push them through the hole that they're sitting in, so that way you kind of jog the glue around and it's not just sitting on the surface. Now it's actually coating the line as it's sitting inside the wall. I think that is a good idea. I don't know if it's actually going to do any good, but I think it might. And if I don't pull all these fibers out of these tubes again, I do want to thread them really nicely now. Let's see if I can get a better camera angle going on here for you, so that I can still work well, have a good angle, and you guys can see what I'm doing. Why don't I move in here a little? There we go. So I got a lot of overhead lights going on and things in the way and all sorts of little issues that make it difficult to see what's going on and be able to show you guys what's going on here. So the nice thing about using all the white glue is that it's got a slow setting time, so you really don't have to rush getting these into place. I've got the model precariously sitting on that plastic tub that I was using to, there we go, that's a little better. The plastic tub I was using to measure out these lengths of fiber, and it's a little precarious, as I say. I also want all this fiber to have a really good twist to it, so it's not yanking itself around and causing undue stress anywhere along the line. Giving them a little tug there to make sure they're all nice and tight. I initially had concerns about putting the 0.75mm through in the same tubes. I figured I might keep that separate, but I don't think there's really any need for that. Being such a close similar diameter, it will be difficult to find it again. But as long as I count out, what, 18 of them, I guess, it shouldn't be too bad. Actually, I do want to smear glue on this first, don't I? And let's get those out of the way. So I'm pulling the threads apart, really trying to squeeze a bit of blob of glue in there. A bit of a blob of glue. Getting the undersides is a little more difficult, but it's working out. And we'll give these a little bit of a push through, just to jog them. Now thread them into the tubes.